Thanks for your company. The details now. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announced yesterday, Thursday, that government is putting together a bipartisan committee to investigate the depreciation in the value of the cedi. The cedi's performance has left many, especially importers, worried. The cedi is currently trading at 5.14 pesos, and we understand this is the XE currency converter. So, with the announcement by the finance minister to put together a committee within the next 10 days, what will the committee do to improve the situation? Listen to the finance minister explain.
It is also noteworthy that while this is a challenge, the cedi has, however, performed better over the last 2 years than when compared specifically to 2012 to 2016. The President has directed that I investigate the structural causes for the depreciation of the cedi and to propose measures to address the situation. The Governor and I will put a bipartisan committee together to proceed immediately.
Well, the question is, don't we already know the problem, as some have asked? Well, I've been joined via Skype by economist Dr. Lord Mensah. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Hello, doctor. Well, we are trying to reach him. I understand you're having issues with our lines, but we'll be having the conversation on what exactly will this committee be doing. Is it necessary at all? We've heard from the minority spokesperson on finance, Ato Forson, who thinks it's a waste of time. But here's leader, Haruna Idrisu, who's the minority leader in Parliament. He says that he is their nominee for that particular committee. So it's interesting that though they say it's a waste of time, they are willing to help government in dealing with the matter. It was topical yesterday. I'm talking about the cedi and the depreciation. And many people have wondered whether we would see an improvement. Earlier in the week, we saw a bit of appreciation, but it was a bit unstable, and we went back into the 540s by midweek. And we'll be trying to get some answers from experts on this. What should we be doing? Is it as simple as just turning our economy into a more productive one, where we cut down on importation and focus more on production? Would that solve the problem once and for all, as others have recommended? Or will it be that we have to look at other angles, other ways of dealing with the matter? But well, according to Bloomberg, the cedi to the dollar rate is 5 cedis, 50 pesos. And so it is an appreciation from what we saw yesterday. And yesterday, if you're following proceedings in Parliament, there was some interesting point where the majority leader, Osei Mensah, faulted the minority for quoting from different sources when it worked for them. And so when it worked for them, they would quote Bloomberg. When it doesn't, then they would quote the Bank of Ghana. But I've got Professor Godfrey Poppin on the line. He is also an economist, and he's joined us for this conversation. Good morning, sir. Thanks for your time.
Yes, good morning, and good morning to our cherished viewers and listeners.
Is the setting up of a bipartisan committee really necessary?
My first reaction is that it's not so necessary. If the mandate of the committee is to understand why the cedi depreciates, I don't think that is necessary.
So what would you suggest we rather do? Because it appears the cedi is not recovering as many would want to see it do. So what do we do if the bipartisan committee is not the way to go?
My thinking is that in terms of why the cedi depreciates, I do not think that we need a bipartisan committee to understand that. Why the cedi depreciates to a very large extent common as today. When you look, I am of the view that this government has the requisite knowledge and expertise in terms of understanding why the city depreciates. Certainly, they have more than enough. When you look at the series of lectures that Dr. Baumia gave and various key people in this government when they were in opposition, I think that you do know. On another bet, I tend to sympathize with the minister when he says we need a bipartisan committee to understand, because in this country everything practically is politicized, and that itself does not help us in coming out with a broad-based solution backed by the necessary political will and the need of the citizens or the electorate of Ghanaians. From perspective, one sympathize with the minister, because for a minister to make such a statement, certainly it's got a point. We cannot just discard that totally, because the way we see things in this country and put things in this country lack the minimum objectivity that Ghana deserves from every Ghanaian in terms of how do we move forward. We don't have that character. If you see how issues are discussed, how issues are presented in Parliament, out of Parliament, everywhere, radio stations, even in academia and all of that, I think the political bias tends to cloud our objectivity.
Okay.
And it's Ghana that suffers at the end of the day. From that perspective, one could say that fine. So, but the point is, if this committee come out, what would they come out different from what we are already aware of? The problem with the city is more of the political will, the necessary buy-in from Ghanaians, and the painful process we have to go through in restructuring our economy. I don't think we have that political will. These are things that we talk more about in words than we back it with action.
Dr. Bokpin, when you say political will, what are you hoping to see to say that, yes, that will pass for political will?
I think it's down to also leadership, because people respond to incentives. We know that key people whose margins are guaranteed from excessive imports, and sometimes in some sectors it's like a cartel. So any decision to talk about let's not import this or so, there will be resistance. Some of them are key financiers of these major political parties. You know how it's very difficult for an entrepreneur in Ghana to remain purely an entrepreneur. They dabble in politics also, and all of that. That is very, very important. The signaling effect that this is where we are going, regardless of whether it will cost you the next election or not, is very, very key.
Doc, let me find out from you.
Around it.
Okay. When he was speaking in Parliament, the finance minister said the current state of the city is not due to weak economic fundamentals, and I'm quoting him, but rather a combination of structural rigidities and apparent speculative behavior of portfolio investors. Do you agree with him?
I agree largely with that assessment, and I think that it's a fair assessment. It's a fair diagnostic of the situation. When you look at the fundamentals of the economy, I'm not doing regime comparison, but when you look at it from end of 2016 to end of 2018, or even early part of 2019, you cannot objectively conclude that the fundamentals have weakened, and for that reason the city is taking a haircut. No. I think it has more to do also with external shocks. But the point is that the fundamentals in the last 2.5 years or so have not improved so much that it could withstand this shock. That is also a fact. And the question is whether within these 2.5 years we could have asked for more. We can all discuss that. But when you look at our trade balance from our balance of payment, you can see that since 2017, we have had a positive trade balance. In fact, our trade balance in 2017 was around $1 billion. Our trade balance in 2018 was around $1.5 billion. But the betrayal and why the city is depreciating, theoretically, once you have a positive trade balance, it should contribute to the strengthening of the local currency. That is not happening because the betrayal you can see that in the income account, where the exit in terms of the outflow far outweigh the positive balance from our trade balance. So while 2018 we had a trade balance of $1.5 billion, the services and income account is showing a deficit of over $6 billion. And that's very huge. And you know why that is happening? It's because of the excessive dominance of foreign participants in our economy, both in terms of our debt portfolio and then the institutional unit driving our economic growth. Look, our economy is driven largely by just 55 institutional units. Less than 5% of them are Ghanaian owned. You cannot call this economy yours. So you realize that the drivers of the growth and those who are financing that growth, more than 80% of them are foreigners. So towards the end of the year, and many corporate Ghana, many of them, they have their financial year ending 31st December. Between the 1st December and March ending, there's so much transfers, profit transfers, externalizing dividends and coupon and all of that. So within the first quarter of the year, the city is exposed because of maturity mismatching, because our major inflows wouldn't have materialized, but outflows tend to pick up. Then we have importers who also demand dollars to restock because of the depletion of their stock as a result of Christmas and all of that. Apart from that, you can also, there's something the finance minister said, which is largely known now, because if you look at how we have operationalized our debt management strategy from 2015, so you pick Ghana's public debt or our debt stock, and you find that we are doing a lot more in terms of domestic debt.
All right.
The domestic debt, we are opening it up excessively to foreign investors.
All right, Prof. Let me have you hold on here. Apologies for that. We've been joined via Skype by economist Dr. Lord Mensah. You're welcome to the program, Doc. Prof. Bogbin does not think setting up a bipartisan committee to investigate the depreciation of the cedi is necessary. What do you think?
The short term, medium term, and long term. Now, when you take the long term, it purely tells you that they not export more, and rather we are more. So at each point in time, we need a dollar to do that. But then that calls for reorientation of the economy to become export-oriented. And that is not done overnight. It's not done also with 4 years. So you might know which party will be in power within that 4 years, within that 8 years. So for me, we should accept the national discourse. So at the end of the day, whichever party that has power or whichever regime we find ourselves in will champion that cause. I believe that whatever the party the two parties come up with, it will definitely be something that is binding and that would be transferred from time to time. At the end of the day, we deliberate to decide which particular regime is able to speed up the execution of those things, policies that will come up from the bipartisan. Now remember, President Mahama Ogana said consensus on the economy some time ago, and that was what parties can a way of addressing foreign exchange, and the document ended up the president's table, and once it becomes a document for one party, it's not a document that can be used in the economy, because once the party it, that document is not being used anymore. So for me, I believe if you look at the drivers of African exchange, the short term is basically the sentiment that drives the exchange. That can be by what Bank of Ghana is doing now by pumping dollars into the system, make sure that it's sustained on the short term. In the medium term and the seasonal, you can see clearly that, like Professor was saying, let's got every year that there's pressure on the dollar in this country. And in that case, why don't we sit down? But both parties come together to say that let's provide some tax incentives for these companies to retain their funds. And of course, if you are providing tax incentives, it's a kind of a policy which needs to be adopted by the nation. And the only way you can do that is for both parties to adopt, because one party cannot use those incentives, and another party comes up. So I believe that we need two parties to champion this cause so that we can have our city.
And so you agree that the bipartisan committee is the way to go?
I do. I definitely do.
Okay, they are not only expected to determine the cause of the Cedi's depreciation, but also to propose measures to address the situation.
Yeah.
You are an economist. From where you sit, can you suggest any measures to help us deal with the problem?
Yes, it's a matter of identifying the forces that are bringing the cedi, the dollar apple, the exchange rate. Now, the forces can be categorized into, I mentioned it earlier, one, the short term, and then two, the seasonal, effect, and then also the long term. The long term has to do with structural change of our economy, and that is about making sure that the economy becomes more export than import. In that case, diversifying your export. In the seasonal effect, which I have now in the first quarter of every year, what I will propose, the government can come up with a tax incentive provided for these national companies that are protecting their dividend and their coupon back to their investors. Give them incentive, give them tax rebate of 10% or 20%. They have to wait. Of course, some calculations go in there. You need to understand that tax is a policy. If you are introducing it, it needs to be accepted by parties. And then also in the term, that's exactly what we are doing now. The dollar buffer to meet the pressures of the demand that is on the dollar. So I believe that the measures they can, what they are doing now, not that wrong, but then it's not able to, sustain the city. Take last year, for instance, the city was somewhere 4.2. The year before it was 3.9. Now, the year before that, it was 3.2. So you can see that long-term trajectory. In the short term, favor around this trajectory. And that's as a result of the way we pump it, and then the more where the demand comes in and it goes up and down. And so you could see that in the short term, you're able to keep sentiment private. What is happening is that long-term aspect is, and those are my possible three suggestions that I can give.
All right, let me get Professor Bokbin's proposals on the measures to address the situation. Prof, what do you think we should be doing as a nation?
Like I said, that I do not think that the committee level is the way to go. The reason is that you are asking us to come out with solutions. So are we saying that these solutions are not known? Or when a committee says this is the way to go, then suddenly we are all going to buy into it? Or we say that when the committee comes up with a solution, will it be entirely different from the solutions that Dr. Baumia professed in 2014? From the positions that the party had used, both parties, independent analysts, and all of that. The point is that people have made references to what the former president did with the Cedi Consensus, the National Economic Forum. Let them tell us what were the visible, practical, useful outcomes of those national forums. The Cedi Consensus that transited to the homegrown fiscal consolidation failed, and that was how come the government in August 2014 submitted to the IMF for a fund-supported program. When you look at the original document, there was an admission that the homegrown policy born out of the Cedi National Economic Forum or whatsoever actually failed. It has more to do with implementation, with their committee be supervising the implementation, No, I think that there's a lot of confidence in this government, given the overwhelming support they had in 2016, and given the team that they had assembled and all of that. I can understand in terms of the political bias and all of that, the fact that we hardly rally around a common national agenda and all of that. But I think it's something that otherwise it's not only the city. There are so many issues in this country that are highly politicized here and there. Are we going to go committee by committee and all of that? I think that we have seen the city recovering. We know the structural issues. You can track the campaign promises and diagnoses that all the parties made in the run-up to the 2016 budget election. You find the solution that they've talked about. I don't think we are going to come out with something new. The finance minister, I told you, has a very good understanding of the economy. And the statement he made in Parliament, I agree largely in terms of why the city is depreciating. I also sympathize with them in terms of the immediate measures, the medium term, the long term, and all of that. The question is, do we have the political will to follow through? If you ask anybody to tell you why the city is depreciating and the solutions is a textbook knowledge, we can easily talk about that. Do we have an implementation strategy? An implementation strategy that is broad-based with stakeholder buy-in. Do we have that? We don't. If we are saying that let this committee come out with the causes and the solution as a starting point for designing an implementation strategy, well, I don't have a problem. But we have an economic management team. We have fiscal responsibility advisory council. We have the fiscal responsibility act. We have the Public Financial Management Act. We have regulations in terms of foreign exchange activities. I admit there are operational infractions in the foreign exchange market. It's the duty of the central bank to deal with that. You saw their regulation, their revised regulations they published February 25th or so in terms of correcting some of the operational infractions. I do largely agree. It has more to do with the enforcement. Take the country as a whole. We've got beautiful laws that if we're able to observe them, even 90% of that will have all our problems solved.
All right, Prof.
Laws that are observed more in breach than in compliance.
Okay.
These are systematic issues that I think should not be lost on us.
Thanks for your submission. But before you go, we'd just like you to help us understand what accounts for the different Cedi dollar exchange rates. We've quoted from two different sources today, Bloomberg and another. There are differences. Just help us understand why that happens.
I think it depends on where they are picking it from. Sometimes you can pick it from the interbank rate, but one of the important functions of the market is to perform the role of what you call price discovery. So it is possible that you can go to Barclays and then the spot rate may be different from what maybe Standard would have quoted or what ADB Bank would have quoted. That is normal. But the difference is not expected to be that large. Yeah. You can also make reference to Bank of Ghana's rate, which ideally is supposed to mirror the interbank rate. That would be an average rate. Average rate means that it's sandwiched between the upper and the lower limit. Okay, so it is not the case that we can find that all the markets are quoting the same prices. But the idea is that the market performs an important role of price discovery. I hope that's so you can see a little bit of variance. Others will also want to pick their figures from the Forex Bureau because they think that is where the forces of demand and supply actually crystallize. So when you pick it from there, you may find a slight difference from when you pick it from the interbank rate or you pick it from the Bank of Ghana's official rate. All those things are there in the market.
Thank you very much for your time, Professor Godfred Popping is an economist. We've also had Dr. Lord Mensah. Your final words, Doc, even as we look forward to having the cedi perform better against the dollar than it is now.
Come again with your question.
I'm just saying that what are your final words? In summary, what should we be looking forward to? What should we be focusing on as we hope to see a recovery in the cedi's performance against the dollar?
Yeah, I think the significance of cedi's performance against the dollar reflect in party manifesto in parading before elections, and then when they come, adapt them into their policies that to Ghanaians. But then the question you need to ask yourself is, at what level do we implement those policies? Something like 1D, something like having a diversified education and all those. It's a way of building up into our, foreign exchange generation, the dollar abroad by exportation and all those. So for me, I think we need to be focused as a country, and that is why I believe that the bipartisan, committee policy will help us. But then it should be restricted to both parties alone. They should have technical input, and I believe that they will come up with a paper. If we keep to those papers and we implement them to the latter, we should be able to come out with this.
Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Lord Mensah. We appreciate your submission. And we've been talking about the Cedi and the finance minister's revelation, if you may, in Parliament that there's going to be a bipartisan committee to determine the course of the performance of the Cedi on the foreign exchange market and propose measures to address the situation.